we're going to take a look at characteristics. So far, what we have been looking at is linear functions. And so this is what a linear parent function looks like. A straight line, a slanted straight line. There are other parent functions that we're going to look at in Algebra 1. That is the quadratic parent. So that's going to be our next unit after we complete linear parents. That looks like a U, and it can also look like an N. And then in the second semester, we're going to take a look at an exponential parent, and that looks like a slide. Okay, so it can look like that, or it can look like this. All right, there are other parents that we're going to talk about as I mentioned, but you'll really look into detail in Algebra 2. That is the cube root, absolute value, and the square root. Right here, we're going to go ahead and draw what those look like. So I'm going to go ahead and put those into the calculator. So just under the bottom, we're going to put cube root. So this is not the same as square root because notice outside the radical, there's a little index of 3. So cube root. And cube root looks like an S that goes through 0. An X and Y axis, and you're going to draw like a kind of like a stretched out S that goes through the middle. So something similar to that. All right, so that's cube root. We're going to take a look at absolute value. So absolute value looks like this, and it looks like a V. Okay, so again, we're going to go ahead and draw that real quick. So the axis, and then absolute value looks like a V that goes through 0, 0. Finally, we're going to draw square root. And that looks like half of a, well, actually, I'm not even sure. So you guys come up with something that you can tell me what it looks like. All right, so those are the parent functions. So these 3 is going to be the focus of Algebra 1, and these 3 is going to be the focus of Algebra 2. So let's go ahead and dive right into characteristics. So we're going to look at certain characteristics in this video, and in the next video, we'll cover the rest. So we're going to look at x-intercepts and y-intercepts. So x-intercepts are where the graph crosses the x-axis. It says that we want you to find the x-intercept of your linear parent, quadratic parent, and because this is the same, they have the same x-intercept. So we're going to go take a look at linear and quadratic. And remember, this is where it crosses the x-axis. All right, so again, I'm going to highlight the x-axis, which is right here. Where does the graph, and remember, when I talk about the graph, I'm not talking about the coordinate plane. So these boxes are coordinate plane. The graph is the actual line. So as I draw this line, where does it touch the yellow? Right here. So it crosses the x-axis at what number? The x value of 0. Quadratic parent, because apparently they have the same one. So here's the x-axis again. Where does the graph, which now in this case is this u, touch that yellow? So it's right here, touches the x-axis right there. So we can see again that the x-intercept is 0. Now we're going to write the x-intercept as a coordinate, 0, 0. All right, then you can see that for exponential parent it says not applicable. And I'm just going to quickly show you why it says not applicable for exponential functions. So again, I'm going to highlight my x-axis. In this coordinate plane, it does look like the graph does touch the x-axis. However, when we do this unit, you'll understand what I'm talking about in detail. This graph actually approaches 0, but never quite touches it. So it gets very close to it, but doesn't touch it, and that's why it's NA. So we're going to skip that one, and then we're going to find linear 2. I'm going to draw again because I'm looking for the x-intercept. I'm interested where the line of the graph crosses the x-axis. And so we can see that that graph crosses right here. And you're going to write down what that coordinate is, which is -3, because remember you always read x first and then y. So -3, 0. All right, and what I want you to do is you're going to find what is the x-intercept of quadratic 2 and random. So please pause the video to find what the x-intercept is for those two. The next thing that we're going to look at is the y-intercept. Okay, so this is where the graph crosses the y-axis. So the axis that I'm predominantly interested in is the y. So linear parents, again, I'm going to start off with highlighting my y-axis, okay, for every single one, since this is the y-axis that I'm looking for. And the question that you're asking yourself is, where does it cross the y-axis? Where does it cross the y-axis? So looking at this graph, it crosses right here, which is at 0, 0. Where does this one cross? Right here at 0, 0. Where does this one cross? Right here at 1. So these two are 0, 0. These two are 0, 0. And then the exponential, you can see that now it is not blacked out. That exponential one is at 0, 1. For this one, linear 2, where does this line cross the highlighted portion? Right here. And how do I read that coordinate? 0, negative 1. It's going to be 0, negative 1. So now I want you to pause the video and find the y-intercepts for the next 3. And this one's a little bit of a trick. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and give you the hint on how to find this one. It says if you're given anything else but a graph, or in this case, a graph that you can't see where the y-intercept is, put it into Desmos so you can see the graph. If you want to see exactly where on the y-axis it is, if you click in here, and then you can click on the dot. And I'm just going to hide it because I actually want you to type it in. So type it in and see where this black line crosses that y-axis. And then go ahead and write it. The other two, you can see it. Okay, so I want you to fill this in. Let's practice.